Hello, students, and welcome. I know exams are coming up, and this chapter, the fundamental unit of life, can sometimes feel a bit big and complicated, but please don't worry. Today, we are going to put all the pieces together and make sure everything is crystal clear for you.
So, our goal today is simple. We're going to build a strong, clear story about the cell, right from its discovery to how it divides. We'll go through each concept one step at a time so that by the end, you'll feel much more confident and prepared. Shall we begin? Let's start. You know, every big idea has a beginning, a story of how it started. And the story of the cell is really quite fascinating. To properly understand what a cell is, it helps to go back in time to see how scientists first discovered this invisible world. So, picture this. It's the year 1665. A scientist named Robert Hooke is looking at a thin slice of cork under his own self-designed microscope, and what he sees is amazing. He sees these tiny, box-like structures, a bit like a honeycomb. You can see his drawing right here. He thought they looked like the small rooms or cells that monks lived in. And just like that, the term cell was born. Now, Hooke's discovery was just the start. After him, many other scientists added important pieces to this puzzle. Soon after, Leeuwenhoek saw living, moving cells in a drop of pond water for the first time. Much later, Robert Brown found the dark spot in the center, which he called the nucleus. Then, Schleiden and Schwann put all the ideas together to propose the cell theory. And finally, Virchow added a crucial point, that all cells come from other cells. It was a real team effort over many, many years. So all these discoveries led to what we call the cell theory. This is a very, very important concept for your exams. It has three main points. 1, all living organisms, plants and animals, are made of cells. 2, the cell is the most basic fundamental unit of life. And 3, all new cells are formed only from cells that already exist. Please remember these 3 points very carefully.
Okay, so we know how the cell was discovered. Now, let's become explorers and take a tour inside a cell. We'll start from the very outer boundary and slowly make our way inwards, looking at all the important parts that make a cell work.
The first thing you'll notice is that not all cells look the same. Look at the ones here. The long branched nerve cell is designed perfectly to send signals. The smooth muscle cell is long and thin, perfect for contracting. And the red blood cell is like a disc, which helps it to travel through tiny blood vessels. So always remember this. The shape of a cell is directly related to the specific job it has to do. Form follows function. Every cell is enclosed by a very thin, delicate outer boundary called the plasma membrane, or the cell membrane. Now, this is not just a simple covering. It acts like a security guard. It checks everything that tries to enter or leave the cell. This property is called being selectively permeable. It selects what is permitted to pass through. This is a key term, so make sure you know it. So because the membrane controls movement, let's see what happens to a cell in different types of solutions. If we put a cell in a hypotonic solution where there's more water outside, water will rush in and the cell will swell up. In an isotonic solution, the water concentration is the same inside and out, so nothing really changes. But in a hypertonic solution, there's less water outside, so the cell loses water and shrinks. Understanding these 3 situations is key to understanding osmosis. Now, here comes a major difference between plant and animal cells. Plant cells have an extra tough layer outside the plasma membrane. This is called the cell wall. It's made of cellulose and it's quite rigid. This wall gives the plant cell its shape and strength, and it also protects the cell from bursting if it takes in too much water. Animal cells, on the other hand, do not have a cell wall. All right, moving inwards from the membrane, we find the most important part of the cell, the nucleus. You can think of it as the brain or the control center of the cell. It's protected by a double-layered membrane, and inside it are thread-like structures called chromosomes. These chromosomes are made of DNA, which carries all the genetic information, the instructions for everything the cell will ever do. Based on the nucleus, we can divide cells into 2 main types. This is another very common comparison question. Prokaryotic cells, like bacteria, are very simple. They don't have a proper, well-defined nucleus. Their genetic material just floats in a region called the nucleoid. Eukaryotic cells, which make up plants and animals, are more complex. They have a true nucleus with a nuclear membrane and many other membrane-bound organelles. So let's talk more about those organelles inside the eukaryotic cell. The space between the nucleus and the plasma membrane is filled with a jelly-like substance called cytoplasm, and floating within the cytoplasm are many tiny structures called organelles. Each organelle is like a specialized worker in a factory with a very specific job to do.
First up, let's look at the cell's manufacturing and transport system. This includes the endoplasmic reticulum, or ER, which is a network of tubes. The rough ER makes proteins, while the smooth ER makes fats and lipids. Once these things are made, they are sent to the Golgi apparatus. Think of the Golgi as the cell's packaging and dispatch department. It modifies, sorts, and packs these materials to be sent where they're needed.
Okay, time for a very famous question. I am sure you all know the answer to this one. There is one particular organelle that is responsible for generating all the energy for the cell. Which organelle is known as the powerhouse of the cell? Think about it for a moment.
Yes, you're right. It's the mitochondria. These organelles are the powerhouses because they perform cellular respiration. They take in food and oxygen and release energy. This energy is stored in a special molecule called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. ATP is like the energy currency of the cell. Anytime the cell needs to do work, it spends ATP.
Let's quickly look at a few other important workers. We have lysosomes, which are the cell's waste disposal system. They contain powerful digestive enzymes and can break down waste. That's why they are sometimes called suicide bags. Then, in plant cells only, we have plastids. The most famous type is the chloroplast, which is where photosynthesis happens. And finally, we have vacuoles, which are storage sacs. In plant cells, there's usually one very large central vacuole that stores water and helps keep the cell firm.
So, we have explored a single cell, but what happens when an organism needs to grow or heal a cut? Well, cells need to multiply. The process by which new cells are made is called cell division. This is absolutely essential for growth, for replacing old cells, and for reproduction.
Now, there are two types of cell division, and it's very important to know the difference. Mitosis is for growth and repair. In this process, one parent cell divides to form two identical daughter cells with the exact same number of chromosomes. Meiosis, on the other hand, is used for reproduction. Here, one cell divides twice to form four new cells called gametes, and each of these has half the number of chromosomes as the parent cell.
We have covered all the major concepts of the chapter. Now, for this last part, let's focus specifically on preparing for your exam. I want to highlight some common mistakes students make and remind you about the diagrams you absolutely must practice. This will help you score better. All right, let's clear up a few things. First, please do not confuse the cell wall and the cell membrane. Remember, the cell wall is only in plants, it's thick and rigid. The membrane is in all cells, and it's thin and flexible. Second, a very interesting fact, mitochondria have their own DNA and ribosomes. Don't forget that. Third, be very clear about mitosis and meiosis. Know their purpose and the final outcome. And finally, remember that cells are not always round. Their shape depends on their function.
In biology, diagrams are crucial. They can fetch you very good marks. For this chapter, you must practice drawing and labeling a few key diagrams. Make sure you can draw a neat diagram of a plant cell, an animal cell, and also a neuron, like the one you see here. Practice will make you perfect.
To make sure you've understood everything, I suggest you practice writing the answers to these common questions. For example, why is the plasma membrane called selectively permeable? What are the key differences between a plant and animal cell? And why are lysosomes known as suicide bags? Trying to answer these will really solidify your knowledge. And with that, we've come to the end of our revision. Remember, understanding the cell is so important because it's the foundation for everything else you will learn in biology. I hope this session has helped connect all the ideas for you. You have built a strong base today. Keep revising, and I am sure you will do wonderfully. All the best!